This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Amazon for all your gifting needs.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
My fellow Americans, welcome to the show. The phone line is open, 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program. I got a lot to get off my chest today. I'm going to save it for 1 o'clock. I already told Charlie. You may want to just disconnect the phone lines at 1 o'clock because I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about a lot of stuff y'all aren't going to like. But it's okay. We'll get there. But in the meantime, text Eric to 33777 and you can get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast, and everything else. Right now, we got to begin with probably the biggest story. Every once in a while, you run into stories and situations where you say, if Donald Trump had done that, what would the media reaction be? It's a pretty docile reaction from the American press corps right now, given what's actually happened in the last 24 hours related to Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg has sent a letter to Congress and said that, yes, in fact, the Biden administration pressured Mark Zuckerberg and Meta into censorship. The full weight of the federal government. And remember, before you think, well, what could the government do? The Federal Trade Commission and Democrats in Congress have together been trying to break up Meta, Mark Zuckerberg's other child. Now, let me just give you the background here from Peter Doocy and Steve Doocy and Fox and Friends this morning.
Good morning, and the reason that we know about this letter that Mark Zuckerberg sent to Jim Jordan is because Jim Jordan posted it. So, about COVID censorship, Mark Zuckerberg writes, in 2021, senior officials of the Biden administration, including those from the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 related content, including humor and satire, and expressed significant frustration when we did not meet their demands. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. On that point, a few minutes ago, a White House official told us, when confronted with a deadly pandemic, this administration encouraged responsible actions to protect public health and safety. Our position has been clear and consistent. We believe tech companies and other private actors should take into account the effects their actions have on the American people while making independent choices about the information they present. And that's not all. Zuckerberg is also writing about Hunter Biden censorship. He says, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while we were waiting for a reply. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we should not have demoted the story.
Now, look, full disclosure here. I want to put this in perspective for you. Meta is a sponsor of my gathering and has been the last couple of years. I wouldn't light them on fire even if they weren't, but I will tell you, they're the only tech company willing to help conservatives get a conference like The Gathering off the ground. Twitter wouldn't do it. Google ghosted us. Never heard back from Microsoft. Apple doesn't do stuff like that. Meta was willing. And what did they want in exchange? Absolutely nothing. Just wanted a fair hearing that they could explain their side to me if possible. They've been honest brokers with me. And I understand a company with a government of the United States breathing down their neck, looking into breaking them apart, saying, hey, we want you to do this for us. Any company in that position would have to consider their options. At the time, you will recall, you have Democrats in charge of the House and the Senate and the White House and the bureaucracy and the state of California, the FTC, the SEC. Good luck with that if you try to defy them. The larger issue here is Amy Coney Barrett in the United States Supreme Court that cast a skeptical eye on the Missouri and Texas lawsuit against social media companies. Probably going to have to reconsider that one at some point, given what the government does. And the other standout here is Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, had this exchange with Josh Hawley.
Of this administration, coordinated, apparently, according to a federal court, by your agency, pressuring, coercing social media companies to engage in censorship. Is that constitutional?
That is unequivocally false.
Is what the emails show.
It is unequivocally false, Senator.
You are not pressuring the big tech companies to take down accounts. You are not meeting with them to ask them to censor on your behalf.
That is correct. We are not.
Mr. Secretary, it has been established for years in this country, as you very well know because you're a lawyer, that the federal government may not use private third parties to engage in activities that are unconstitutional. That's exactly what you and this administration are doing. You are leveraging private companies to carry out censorship on your behalf. It's dystopian, but worse than that, it's unconstitutional.
It's also false.
It's also false, he said. This is the letter. I have it right here from Mark Zuckerberg. Dear Chairman Jordan, I appreciate the committee's interest in content moderation on online platforms. As you are aware, Meta has produced thousands of documents as part of your investigation and made a dozen employees available for transcribed interviews. Further to our cooperation with your investigation, I welcome the opportunity to share what I've taken away from this process. There's a lot of talk right now about how the U.S. government interacts with companies like Meta, and I want to be clear about our position. Our platforms are for everyone. We're about promoting speech and helping people connect in a safe and secure way. As part of this, we regularly hear from governments around the world and others with various concerns around public discourse and public safety. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take the content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family in Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. It's since been clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted that story. We've changed our policies and processes to make sure that doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the United States while waiting for fact checkers. Apart from content moderation, I want to address the contributions I made during the last presidential cycle to support election infrastructure. The idea here was to make sure local election jurisdictions across the country had the resources they needed to help people vote during a global pandemic. I made these contributions to the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. They were designed to be nonpartisan, spread across urban, rural, and suburban communities. Still, despite the analysis I've seen showing otherwise, I know that some people believe this work benefited one party over the other. My goal is to be neutral and not play a role one way or the other, or even to appear to be playing a role, so I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle. Couple of takeaways here. First, how do we reconcile Alejandro Mayorkas and his statements to Josh Hawley? Well, third paragraph, first sentence from Mark Zuckerberg. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House. Mayorkas is not at the White House. He's at the Department of Homeland Security. Zuckerberg doesn't say the Department of Homeland Security. He says senior administration officials. So Mayorkas can say he didn't lie to Congress and just didn't know, had no idea. Likewise, the FBI warned us of potential Russian disinformation. That's the Department of Justice, not the Department of Homeland Security. So Mayorkas can say he has clean hands on this. The other issue here, though, is can you imagine the media reaction if Donald Trump were in charge? What if Donald Trump had pressured Facebook to shut down all the reporting on the Steele dossier? Not a hypothetical. The Steele dossier existed. We know it was disinformation. We know it wasn't true. What if the Trump administration leveraged its government powers to pressure Facebook and Meta to not report on it? You know what the media outrage would be. You know what the National Press Corps would say. You know what the Democrats would say. Notice the silence from the media here. Facebook is being open and honest. Under the pressure of a trifecta Democratic-controlled United States government, including the regulatory agencies of the United States and the state of California, it placated the government. It didn't say anything publicly about the pressure. Can't really blame them, can you? I mean, you could say, if I was in this position, I would do otherwise. But when you're responsible for billions of dollars of shareholder value, let alone your value, and the government, Democrats control the White House, the Senate, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the District Court in San Francisco into which they would be sued, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Federal Communications Commission. Are you really sure you would advance your righteous goals over the shareholder value of the company that would collapse under the weight of a multi-pronged attack on the company? Are you really sure? It's easy for you to say so, but you can say so in the hypothetical. You don't actually have to bleed the money. Facebook would have. What's more telling to me is not that they did it, because I think most companies would. What's more telling to me is that they're now being honest about it, and two, the media is absolutely unconcerned that the government would pressure a third party to censor people on their platform. And this is what we see time and again. And this gets into the Telegraph arrest of Pavel Durov in France. This gets into the harassment of Elon Musk by Democrats. The elite in this country, and particularly the illiberal left, do not like free speech. They do not believe they should have to combat speech with speech. They believe they should just be able to shut up the people they don't like. And they were able to use the pressure of a fully unified government, executive branch, regulatory agencies, and state of California to tell Meta, you better do what we want or else. Of course, you would fold too. Don't pretend otherwise in your righteous selves. What's also notable is that Facebook says it made changes. Now, I can tell you from terms of their political content, one of the things they've done is they've devalued political content. I mean, I'll just expose the numbers for you. In fact, heck, I can do this for you in real time. So we were making thousands of dollars a month on our videos on Facebook just a couple of years ago. We were making a lot of money on Facebook, as were other platforms like the Daily Wire, things like that. And I can tell you, we haven't changed anything. The only thing that's changed is Facebook's algorithm. And you want to get a sense of what I did last month on Facebook. I'm pulling up my bank account right now. Yep, we got like $50. Yep, about $50. We haven't changed anything. Facebook's changed their algorithms, and they've devalued everything when it comes to political content. Everyone has seen a massive drop-off. Our YouTube revenue has gone up. Facebook revenue has plummeted. That's how Facebook chose to handle the whole situation, is your conversations with your friends. They've increased the value. The standalone company that talks about politics on Facebook, they've devalued their content and taken it largely out of the news feed. So I'm actually a loser in this change. But you're actually a winner in this change, because one of the things Facebook has decided to stop doing is telling grandmothers to take stuff off their Facebook page or devaluing it without grandmother's notice, because they've seen the heavy hand of government themselves. They've experienced it. Now they're admitting it, and they've decided to change their practices to avoid being bullied by the government again. The best way to avoid being bullied is to make sure everybody knows it when it's happening.
Blinds.com Cyber Monday Last Chance is happening now. Don't miss out on up to 45% off site-wide. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can handle everything from measure to your whole home installed for one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% site-wide, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very delighted to have you. Friends, we need to talk about Kamala Harris and her second action as a presidential candidate. So for perspective, Kamala Harris's first action as a presidential candidate was to engage in a price-fixing plan that even Democrats have rebuked as unserious, unlikely to pass Congress, and potentially detrimental to the economy. It's not potentially, it would be. So what's her second big decision? Who should interview her? And her team is literally asking members of the press who should give her an interview. And what you have to understand is that many members of the press are access-driven, and so you can see how unwilling they are to ask her challenging questions because, one, they're in the tank for her to win. They don't like Trump and his supporters. And two, they want access if she does get elected, so they will not ask her tough questions. One of the names being floated is Gayle King, whose best friend Oprah spoke at the convention, so good luck getting a tough question from Gayle King. They'll say it's a tough question. I can't believe she was so tough on Kamala Harris. Yes, asking her what her favorite color and puppy are. The fact that Kamala Harris's team is scared to death for her to do a tough interview tells you everything you need to know about why even now she's trying to get Donald Trump out of the debate. She doesn't want to have to stand on a debate stage and answer tough questions either. Kamala Harris, remember, less than a year ago, Democrats thought Joe Biden should replace her. She's not as strong a candidate as they would have you believe. I mean, look, she's not. That's not spin on my part. She's objectively not as strong a candidate as the Democrats would have you believe. Now, what is strong is the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. It can wipe out even the strongest odors in your house, the ones that nothing else can do. I've actually got a buddy who took advantage of the deal. You go to EdenPureDeals.com, you put in Eric3. ERICK3. You get 3 of them for less $200. You save $200. So the Eden Pure Thunderstorm generates ozone that latches onto odor ions and wipes them out. Buddy of mine, he and his wife bought a lake house, small little house. The couple who had lived in it, elderly couple, they both died. They had smoked in the house. The place reeked of cigarettes. So they bought the Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack, put them throughout the house, left them running, came back, odor gone. Dirty diaper odors, smoke odors, litter box odors. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm takes them all out. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. You get one for upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your travel bag, wherever you need them. They're small. You can hold them in your hand. They pack a wall up. You can plug them in with a USB cord. You can plug them into the wall. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. You can text Eric, ERICK, to 33777. You can get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, and everything else you need. More importantly, if you text ARMY to 33777. You can help us connect with you. And we will be able, when we're headed into your area, like we're planning an event for those of you out in the Tulsa area, KRMG. We're hoping to get out there right after the election, working with them right now to try to secure dates and things, and I'm going to want to be able to tell you all about it. Okay. We got to talk about Kamala Harris and the border. She's apparently in favor of a border wall now, except we don't really know. There's a blurb in Politico today about Kamala Harris and the desire to do an interview. She's asking reporters, she said she'd do one by the end of this month. The end of this month is at the end of this week, and she hasn't done one. And now her team is openly soliciting from reporters, who do you think would give a great interview? And let's just be clear here. They want a fluffy interview. They don't actually want hard questions. They don't want Jake Tapper, or they don't want Brett Baer. They don't want to be challenged on her record. They want a Gayle King. They want someone from the Today Show. They want The View. This is from Politico. One of the issues that Harris World is currently working to address is how to deploy running mate Tim Walz in the media. The danger is sending him out to do big solo interviews is that he might not have a full command of where Harris is on every issue. And then there's this funny sentence. As someone pointed out to us last night, Harris talks about the opportunity economy, but what if Walz were asked to define it? Would he know how? Kamala Harris would not know how until her political advisors told her how to define it, and then it would be defined in platitudes. Where have you noticed when Kamala Harris, when she starts engaging in platitudes, she starts doing her hands in front of her with her fingers spread. It's both off to each side in kind of a circular motion. We've had meetings about the opportunity economy. And the opportunity economy is an economy where all Americans have opportunity to benefit in the economy. What does that mean? As I said, it means that all Americans have the opportunity to benefit in the economy. Now, the media, of course, will rush through that as Kamala Harris is going to double down on defense of the free market. It's like the border. So the left-wing Axios, and it's very important you understand that there is some good content at Axios. Alex Thompson there has done a great job of covering Tim Walz flip-flops, covering Joe Biden's problems, but Axios has increasingly become a left-leaning website. It was the very first media site I'm aware of to drop the phrase pregnant women in favor of pregnant people. And it was the very first news media site I'm aware of that dropped the phrase homeless for unhoused. That's how progressive Axios has become. And Axios has decided to declare Kamala Harris is now supporting the border wall. Let me explain to you why they've decided Kamala Harris has flipped. Now, keep in mind, Kamala Harris, in her own words, has called the border wall un-American, has said illegal aliens should not be treated as criminals, and they should be able to come here. But in her speech to the Democratic National Convention last week, Harris said she would sign the recent bipartisan border security bill, which Trump had ordered his allies to kill, fearing it would help Democrats in November. That bill, negotiated by senators such as James Langford of Oklahoma and Chris Murphy of Connecticut, requires hundreds of dollars of unspent funds to be used to complete building a wall on the border. So because Harris in her speech said she'd signed that, Axios has declared her flip-flopping on the border wall. Harris herself has said the border wall is a waste of resources, a waste of steel, and un-American. Those are her words. But because she said she'd signed this bill, Axios treats it as, she's changed now. She supports it. But then they include some nuggets. That the legislation wouldn't actually complete the border wall. It would just complete the already purposed sections of the border wall. And not only that, she doesn't actually want to increase funding. So only a portion of the border wall would be funded. And Harris advisors note that the bipartisan border proposal didn't include any new money to continue building the wall. But yet Axios wants you to know she's flipped on this. Her advisors are saying she doesn't support any new money to continue building the wall, but the Axios headline is she's flipped. She's flipped. She's flipped. She's in favor of a border wall, people. She's in favor of a border wall now. Woohoo! It's not what she said. This gets back to the Jonathan Karl interview with Tom Cotton, where Tom Cotton pointed out the last time Kamala Harris addressed the issue of insurance, she supported getting rid of private insurance for everyone. And John Karl says that's not her position now. Tom Cotton accurately says, John, when has she changed her mind? And John Karl cannot say when Kamala Harris changed her mind on the issue. All he knows is he read on Twitter probably that an aide to Kamala Harris says that's not her position now, but she's never said anything. A week ago, J.D. Vance turned into a prophet. Prophet is not welcome in his hometown. It is true. But, you know, there is this wild pattern that we continue to see from the Democrats. Donald Trump, a few months ago, said get rid of taxation on tips, and Kamala Harris called it a foolish proposal doomed to failure. And then suddenly Kamala Harris is campaigning on no taxation on tips. I actually saw some left-wing idiot on Twitter who, back when Trump said this, was blasting it as stupid policy, destined to fail, bad for the economy, and a ridiculous idea no one should support. And just a week ago said that he had started writing Vote Harris for no taxes on tips. Never underestimate the mind of the automaton on the left. J.D. Vance called for an expanded child tax credit. Now Kamala Harris is calling for an expanded child tax credit. So Harris copied Trump on no tax on tips. Harris copied Vance on the child tax credit. So J.D. Vance tweeted this: Kamala Harris will soon propose that we finish the border wall and make America great again. No one should be fooled by the fake campaign copying President Trump's vision. The difference is Trump actually lowered prices as president. Harris is in power now and does nothing. Again, J.D. Vance. Kamala Harris will soon propose that we finish the border wall. According to Axios, Kamala Harris is proposing we finish building the existingly appropriated portions of the border wall. Not even the complete border wall, mind you. But yeah, she's just decided to embrace all of Trump's positions. She doesn't stand for anything, and that's part of the problem. When you listen to Kamala Harris, you can tell she doesn't stand for anything. She stands for nothing. And this, of course, is the nonstop drip, drip, drip of a media that's willing to cover for Kamala Harris. There's no accountability to the press either. In fact, I don't know that I've ever seen an industry as hell-bent on its own destruction as I have the American media. The American press corps just simply cannot understand stuff. Like Jonathan Martin at Politico. Jonathan Martin spends more time trolling Trump supporters these days than actually writing news. I guess he wants access to the Kamala Harris campaign to write another campaign book. I'm not sure, but his belittling of people who are daring to call out the press for not asking tough questions, for willing to embrace the anonymous Kamala Harris staffers as her legitimate change. Why? Why, other than your hatred of Trump? And that's part of the problem here, is the media, it doesn't matter, because we saw this with Bush, we saw it with McCain, we saw it with Romney, we saw it with Trump. They will find a way to justify their hatred of any Republican. Were Nikki Haley right now the Republican nominee, the media would be talking about her dog whistles to white supremacists. It's how bad the American media has become. They are hell-bent on their own destruction. Yes, if Nikki Haley were the Republican nominee at this moment, the National Press Corps and Democrats together would say she's a threat to democracy, she's an authoritarian hell-bent on this country's destruction, and she is sending dog whistles to white supremacists and must be stopped. It's what the media does. It's what the Democrats do. They have only one track. And whenever anyone close to Kamala Harris can soften her image, they will claim that she has softened her image. Never mind that she hasn't. Never mind that Kamala Harris hasn't done anything different. Never mind that Kamala Harris hasn't spoken publicly about her positions. It's a whisper somewhere from someone close to the campaign has said she doesn't believe that anymore, and the media falls all over themselves to say so. Let's take this full circle to the beginning of the hour. You know and I know what the media reaction and the Democratic reaction would be if Mark Zuckerberg sent a letter to the House Judiciary Committee saying Donald Trump's administration, senior officials from the White House, pressured us to censor information. You know exactly what the media and the Democrats together would do. And now you can see exactly what they're doing when Mark Zuckerberg says, actually, it's the Biden administration doing this. The press corps, the National Press Corps, supposed champions of a free press and free speech of the First Amendment, they're like, why are you telling us you should have done more? The press has picked a side. And I cannot emphasize enough that Republicans should treat them as having picked a side and rough the refs. There are great reporters out there. I know some of them. They're good reporters who mean well, who do push both sides and make both sides mad. I know them, but they're not the default at this point. They're not the norm at this point. The reality is the American press corps is on Kamala Harris' side. They do not like Donald Trump. They do not care about fairness. They're playing for keeps. And the Republicans should treat them as such. And that involves doing like Tom Cotton did and go on television with someone like Jonathan Karl and make a fool of him on his own TV show. It involves rhetorical combat with the press. Treat them like the enemy at this point. The fact that Kamala Harris can get away with what she's getting away with and the media turn a blind eye to it and even openly on television say, yeah, it's actually smart. She shouldn't ask it. We shouldn't ask her tough questions. She should avoid us. It's remarkable. They would never do this for any Republican, not just Donald Trump. They wouldn't do this for Nikki Haley. They wouldn't do it for Ron DeSantis. They wouldn't do it for George W. Bush. They wouldn't do it for any Republican. They are on a team, and they're playing for that team. And while there are great reporters and we still rely on so much of the press corps for the general news of the day, we should be mindful that the individual reporters, particularly on social media, they don't want Kamala Harris to even be asked tough questions. In fact, they'll turn on any reporter who throws Kamala Harris off her game, and every reporter knows it. They want access to her and hopefully to her administration, which is how Axios can claim that she has flip-flopped on the border wall when she's actually done no such thing. Now, let me tell you something I won't flip-flop on because I love them. Old Glory Bank. They are my bank, and they can be your bank, too. When you get a home loan with Old Glory Bank, you're doing business with a Pro-America bank. They do VA, conventional, FHA loans. They have competitive rates. They have quick closing times. And, y'all, they're a real bank. They're my bank. My bank account is with Old Glory Bank. They're an online bank, but you could deposit cash. They have a great app. They have a great debit card. Actually, their debit card is well designed. And I enjoy them. Your kid can get an account with Old Glory Bank like my kid. So it's a custodial account. There are no fees for the checking, and they can deposit their cash from their odd jobs, babysitting jobs, things like that. They make it easy. OldGloryBank.com. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender, NMLS number 834337. You can go to oldglorybank.com, get an account in less than 8 minutes online. And again, no fee checking, no fee savings. That's what I have. They've got business accounts. If you're a gun store owner, they're not going to cancel your account. They're not going to prohibit you from using your debit card to buy a gun because they're by conservatives for conservatives. That's why I like them. Oldglorybank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. Greetings and welcome. My buddy John just texted me and says, are you going to talk about Georgia Democrats suing the elections officials in Georgia? And the downside of this show is that it's so bleeding edge. When news breaks, I cover it, and I covered the story yesterday. But for those of you who weren't here, John, so the Democrats in Georgia are trying to keep the Green Party off the ballot in Georgia. And they're claiming, so essentially, if a party gets on the ballot in other states, that party, if it gets on the ballot in 20 states, is automatically allowed to be on the ballot in Georgia. And so the Democrats are suing to stop Jill Stein from being on the ballot in Georgia, and they're claiming that actually the Georgia Green Party isn't tied to the National Green Party, so it's not really the same thing, even though that's never been a contention before. In Wisconsin, you should know the Democrats on the Supreme Court there surprisingly threw out the Democrats' challenge to the Green Party. But here in Georgia, they are trying to do whatever they can to stop it. Now, you should know that there's a background here in that years ago in Georgia, the then Speaker of the House, Tom Murphy, the longest serving Speaker at the time, Democrat, he put the Libertarians on the ballot in Georgia because he saw the way the state was trending and knew the Libertarians and the Republicans would fight it out and there would be runoffs. And the Libertarians could help the Democrats by being on the ballot, by being the proverbial turd in the punch bowl. Well, Democrats or Libertarians still have ballot access in Georgia, oftentimes still get Republicans into runoffs, but these days Republicans tend to win until Republicans talk themselves out of losing. The Democrats have always tried to block the Green Party from getting on the ballot in Georgia because they knew that there would be just enough Democrats who would vote Green that it could hurt them. And now the Republicans have kind of done a backdoor way of making it easier for the Green Party to get on the ballot in Georgia without officially putting them on there. And the Democrats are fighting tooth and nail to stop them because remember, you must kill democracy to save democracy if you are a Democrat. You've got to abort democracy. It's reproductive rights for democracy. To foster a healthy, reproducing democracy, you've got to be able to abort it. That's what's going on here in Georgia. Fascinating, all these. And notice the media is quiet about it. Notice the National Press Corps, which lectures us all the time on democracy and the sacredness of democracy and the ability of people to vote. They're totally fine with it, and they're totally fine with it because none of them care about democracy. None of them actually care about people's choices and votes and candidates. They care about stopping Donald Trump. They will say or do anything, no matter how mendacious or dishonest or misleading it is, just to stop Donald Trump because Orange Man bad. That's where we are. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. If you're buying a building or you're buying a franchise or you're buying out your business partner or you need a heavy equipment loan and you need to move fast, First Liberty Building and Loan makes their own decisions. They can move fast. The Frost family's been doing this since the 90s. They might be able to help your business grow. Reach out to them, firstlibertyga.com. firstlibertyga.com. Well, folks, we've reached that time in the campaign cycle where I am officially annoyed with all sides. And when we come back, I'm just going to burn the ships on the beach, and come what may, some of you will be very angry and email me hate mail. Some of you will be fine. None of us will escape unscathed. I'm just going to tell you exactly what I really think about this campaign cycle as now pro-lifers go to war with Donald Trump and Trump supporters go after them.